When growth stalls, most leaders reach for surface fixes like new campaigns, a sharper sales deck, even new hires. But the real issues are often deeper, such as misaligned systems, broken handoffs, or unreliable data. That's why we built the Growth Readiness Score. In just 5 minutes, you'll get a clear score across 4 critical areas of your revenue operations and see how you stack up against your peers with benchmark data. Tap the link in the show notes to get started. It's quick, insightful, and often reveals issues leaders don't expect. You're listening to RevOps Champions, a podcast created for B2B leaders to help you align your people, streamline your processes, trust your data, and leverage technology in order to grow your business. Welcome back to the show and welcome to a very special episode. I'm your host, Brendon Dennewill. This year, we've sat down with some of the sharpest minds in business, founders, strategists, and innovators who are on the front lines of a massive transformation. As we near the end of our 3rd season, we're stepping back to connect the dots and synthesize the most powerful, actionable insights from those conversations. We created this episode to reinforce the takeaways that kept us thinking and we think will continue to impact all of us in 2026. This season, one central theme emerged again and again. How do we navigate the seismic shifts happening in business right now? The landscape is being reshaped by 2 powerful forces, the explosion of AI and the quiet evolution of the frameworks we use to drive growth. Today, we'll flash back to top guest moments about 3 core topics. First, we'll tackle the AI revolution, cutting through the abstract hype to find what's actually working today, from empowering individuals to the very real struggles of enterprise adoption. Secondly, we'll look at the foundational operating systems that enable sustainable scale. We heard time and again about frameworks like RevOps and EOS that provide the essential blueprint for growth. And finally, we'll zero in on the critical leadership mindsets required to not just survive, but truly thrive in this new era of business. This isn't just a look back, it's a look forward. So let's dive in. Over the course of this season, one topic has dominated nearly every conversation, and that, of course, is artificial intelligence. It's a force that feels powerful, transformative, and for many, incredibly overwhelming. How do you navigate this new digital shift without getting swept away by the hype? This season, our guests provided a masterclass in how to find real practical value. They helped us separate politricks from the practical applications and explore why the AI revolution looks so different for individuals versus enterprise organizations. Their wisdom provides a much-needed compass for any leader charting a course through this new AI-powered world. Let's hear from our guides. Scott Littman, SVP at Capacity.ai.
One of the things we find is that the first step is to make sure that there are AI policies and procedures on use. What are the approved tools? How do you use them? Which use cases do you use them on? What are the prohibitions or permissions towards use of data? How is company data can be used? Should we license directly from Microsoft or ChatGPT or Anthropic an LLM that is ours alone, where we can benefit from this, but we also can put our information in, and it is prohibited from its being shared to the greater whole. There are industry-specific tools that take the foundational AI and wrap them up in things that can be used in industries like financial services and other regulated industries. So having policies and procedures in place is one of the least expensive things a business can do to make sure it's getting consistent benefit. The other thing is training. And if you've ever watched a 20-something use these tools versus I'm a 50-something, and I'd like to think I'm pretty good at this stuff, but I watch my son with very limited business experience, and I see him, spinning the Rubik's Cube at light speed, and I'm slowly chunking it around by comparison. How do you make sure that all of the people in your company are understanding how this stuff works, how to use it best? Because these skills are even, and sometimes it's even generational. So the training side of it, so that an organization is getting full benefits, is a very inexpensive way to make sure this stuff is working. And then Right next after that is what are the most important use cases driven by where are we inefficient? Where are we slow? Where do we have problems? What is a problem we could solve? Because at the end of the day, this isn't just digital transformation. This is automation. And so what task has lots of hands on it and is inefficient? What task is prone to error? What task is taking us days or weeks? And we could change the status quo if we could turn days and weeks into minutes and hours.
Mike Kaput, Chief Content Officer at Marketing AI Institute and the Artificial Intelligence Show.
And it sounds simple, but what I keep coming back to is this is why it is so critical for you to be, as much as humanly possible, focusing on use cases and documenting your workflows for how you achieve those use cases with AI tools, because thankfully, I've been okay at doing this in my own work. So anytime a new model drops, I can just jump into a documented workflow with different prompts that are written down, steps, like pretty straightforward documentation that I can pretty quickly say, okay, let me try out this new model with an existing task or workflow. So you kind of want that infrastructure in some way, even if mine's just Google Docs, it's nothing crazy. You want that infrastructure in some way so you can easily and quickly test out new models, but also at a macro level for your individual marketer, I would say, or business person, I would just make sure to get really good with using at least one of these tools or two of these tools for the right things instead of getting distracted, though it's very easy and fun to get distracted by tools. For businesses, at the business level, it's a little harder because you have to make commitments, right? Like plan around technology. I don't have an easy or a great answer for that because it's really hard. But I would say that there's a lot of FOMO. It's easy to think like, oh my God, if I'm not using the latest, greatest tool, I'm out of luck. But there's also a really, really good chance, I would guess, that you're not getting as much out of the tool you're already using as you could. So there is a balance there that I think is important to consider. What I see often in these kind of areas is you get in all excited to use AI and to deploy AI, and you very quickly realize, oh my gosh, we have all the same issues and problems that RevOps needs to have solved or works on solving before AI was even a thing. So the fundamentals like data quality, cleanliness, silos, process documentation, all this stuff that ends up being a huge inhibitor to doing RevOps right, that's also just directly a huge inhibitor to doing AI right. So I actually think I'm sure AI is going to transform what becomes possible in RevOps, but my guess, at least for today, would be that really good RevOps pros, you're probably needed more than ever to untangle this stuff because it is going to be absolutely critical to do anything useful with AI.
Alex Bratton, CEO and Chief Geek at LexTech Global Services.
I think that's something that folks have to really start looking at is how do you institutionalize it? Because again, this isn't about the technology, it's about the people. And it's getting the folks to continue moving that forward because otherwise it's just going to be a couple leaders pushing it. And again, it's a tool we can buy. And once you get that, then I think we can get beyond just the automation pieces, which are hugely valuable, but we can get to the transformation piece because that's when you're giving an individual, like a salesperson, if we're giving them that personal sales coach, and maybe we're actually standing something up, let's say it's a pharmaceutical sales rep, they can talk to a virtual doctor. Video avatars exist right now. They're talking to a virtual oncologist because they're selling a cancer drug. They can practice their pitch. They can get real-time feedback on what I said about the medication and did I follow our process. I've just allowed that human to do incredible things they never did before. So that, to me, that's the type 2 opportunity that's our 10Xs as organizations is where we hit those superpower capabilities for our whole team.
Jeff Woods, founder at AI Leadership and author of The AI-Driven Leader.
Get 2 sticky notes and a Sharpie. On sticky note number 1, write the question, how can AI help me do this? And put it on your desk. And that serves as a forcing function. It's tough to read the label when you're inside the box. You are doing stuff every day that matters. I guarantee once in the next day are going to be doing something and you're going to look down and see that sticky note and you go, how can AI help me review my financial statements? Which happened to me. And then you're going to see the second sticky note that says context, role, interview, task. Crit.
Yep.
Crit is my prompt framework. This is how you talk to AI. It works for any use case and it will take you into the top 1% of people using AI globally. You give AI lots of context. You assign it a role where you tell AI to act as a certain type of expert.
Yep.
Then you turn the tables and you have AI interview you. This is where I don't ask AI questions. I get AI to ask me questions so it can then accomplish a task, what you want it to do. So real use case, I was reviewing my financials. I saw the first sticky note and went, well, how can AI help me review my financial statements? What would that prompt even look like? And then I saw crit and I went, okay, context, here's my financial statements. And I dragged and dropped them. Role, your role is to act as a strategic CFO who's great at telling a CEO the top 5 things they don't know about their business based on the financials that they should know about their business. Interview me. Ask me 1 question at a time, up to 5 questions to gain deeper context. Task, tell me what those 5 things are. That was the prompt. That was so mind-blowing that I eventually turned that into a custom GPT, where now when I get my financials, I just drag them into the GPT. It asks me 5 questions and it tells me the things I should know about my business that I don't know about my business.
AI is the topic that gets all the headlines, but this season our accomplished guests kept pointing to something less flashy, but infinitely more important: the power of a robust operating system. In this section, we'll revisit the timeless, unshakable pillars of business excellence: people, process, and data. Because AI is an amplifier, it makes good systems great, and it makes chaotic systems fail faster and more spectacularly. 2 frameworks were consistently highlighted as the critical infrastructure for predictable growth: the Entrepreneurial Operating System, or EOS, for high-level alignment, and Revenue Operations, or RevOps, for grounding that alignment in the day-to-day execution of the entire revenue team. They describe these powerful systems for creating clarity, discipline, and a common language across a leadership team, allowing them to navigate complex growth phases with confidence. As you'll hear, our guests say these fundamentals are the true engine of sustainable growth. Mike Payton, EOS implementer, author, speaker, and host of the EOS Leader podcast.
What Gino Wickman, the creator of EOS, discovered a long time ago is when a leadership team or a business is struggling, it's usually struggling due to weakness in one or more of 6 key components that we believe all businesses have and need to strengthen. And those components are the vision component, the people component, the process, the data component, the issues component, the process or process component, depending on what part of the globe you're from. I noticed you've Americanized your pronunciation of that word, and I appreciate it because it always trips me up. And the traction component, the ability to bring a vision down to the ground and execute on that vision. And I think the vision and traction components are the things that in times of risk and uncertainty, we end up talking the most about, because what becomes more difficult when there's a lot of unpredictability in the world, which there seems to be right now, is making decisions using the model you were using when things were more predictable and you had more confidence becomes harder. And what we've learned as EOS implementers over the years, I started in 2007 before the financial meltdown. And so have been through COVID, and now we're going through another tumultuous period. A lot of discovery happening. I mean, I even the smartest, most cutting edge people developing the tools, my sense is, are learning surprising lessons along the way, which is what's so fun and exciting about innovation.
Right.
Maybe a little scary to people who aren't in the thick of it. I've already seen you can use an AI chatbot to create a draft process for you, and then you have to go personalize it, right? Like,
Absolutely. Yep.
you need to understand, none of you started your businesses to be generic providers of an average service. So when you ask technology to mine all the data and content that exists out there and come up with a process for, making an ice cream cone when there's a customer standing in front of you at that counter with 30 flavors of ice cream in it, it's going to be a generic average process. And so if you want to run a great business, you can start there. But step 2 is, how do we make it rich and full and better and uniquely ours?
Yeah.
And so hopefully, Gino, for years, long before AI was anything more than a scientific fantasy, Gino would always say, hey, technology is an accelerant, not the be all end all.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
And so you've got to be clear on what technology is an accelerant of, and make sure you're harnessing it for that outcome. rather than just letting the technology do the work itself.
Dick Polipnik, VP of Marketing at GoRoute.
It's going to be the framework or the methodology that you're following. I know you've had a bunch of episodes in the past, so we don't have to dive too deep into this, but whether you're practicing the Rockefeller habits, the scaling up methodology, or you're doing entrepreneurial operating system, or your dev team is practicing Scrum, or you're using Kanban boards, all of those frameworks are how you structure the bones of the organization. And then you hire around that. You build your day around that. I'm very type A. So my calendar is on the 15-minute increment, booked out, every minute accounted for, because that's just how my brain operates. If I have a blank calendar, which is sometimes I do intentionally, because I need to spend an offsite walking in the woods thinking about this problem that I can't just solve in 15 minutes. This is a major company altering decision. And sometimes I'd like to get outside and be with nature and just think, right?
Yeah.
Think about my options and digest. But getting back to it, the structure of the organization of which you model after your ideal model, whatever suits you, whatever you might have experience in. And of course, there's watered down version of those, right? Like even us, who I am an EOS huge hyper fan, right? So I've actually brought that methodology with me at every single company as well, as much as I can. And the organization kind of has to tailor it to them, because a weekly L10 might not always make sense for you at 90 minutes. At a lot of the startups that I've worked at that I've helped scale, a 60-minute weekly L10 is all you need, unless you're twiddling your thumbs for another 30 minutes and then it's unnecessary. Quarterlies, having an issues list, having a organizational chart, right? Having that be transparent throughout the organization. A lot of those things, I would say that's like the third thing on my list of what separates the companies that either stagnate or die compared to the companies that hyperscale or really outpace their competitors.
Lauren Ryan, Senior Corporate Solutions Engineer at HubSpot.
I traced that back throughout the years to a systems misalignment of like, if we're not communicating well with our systems, we can't communicate well as an organization. And throughout my career, from logistics marketing to startup marketing to financial services marketing, I saw a pretty consistent trend in HubSpot and Salesforce being the system of record for marketing and sales. And so I had this theory that if I could make those tools work well together, I could make the teams work well together.
Mhm.
And I saw that to be true in the organizations where I implemented the tools and helped teams use them. And in addition to my regular job, I started freelancing probably in 2016, right after I got my master's, to really start building my skill set outside of just my regular company, because I wanted exposure to more and more companies to test this theory, and
Mhm.
consistently saw it ring true. Whenever your systems are connected and your teams are like on the same page, technology-wise,
Yeah.
it reflects in the results of the business. Revenue operations as a specialty was formed because the more people did CRM implementations, the more apparent it became that your CRM was your business strategy. And that in order to properly implement your technology, you had to have a cohesive strategy. And the people who became your implementers became the ones who are most in touch with how your business actually operated, because there's the executive declaration of what we're going to do, and there's the real life lived experience of what your end users are actually doing. And there's
Mhm.
all the pieces in between of like who owns where the data's coming from, who's administrating, who's actually using this, what message is actually ending up in the customer's inbox or on the phone with them. And all of that is very disconnected, or it used to be
Right.
before CRMs were implemented and rolled out in companies that maybe didn't have a CRM before, or they had a homegrown CRM that was like forced to fit around their broken processes.
Right.
And so implementers became consultants of your organization in order to then get your technology rolled out. And so where people fail at implementations of HubSpot and other technology is whenever they decide to forego that people development piece and like the interviewing, the research, the end user acceptance testing, when they say like, no, we just need to turn on the tool and start using it. And while you can do that, it's really missing the piece that's going to actually drive adoption, which is understanding what your customers need, what your people need, and tying that together towards your business goals.
Vince Ciopolo, SVP of Revenue Strategy at Dash.
I think of alignment as a huge opportunity, but also a huge threat. There's a difference between getting it right and getting it wrong, because disjointedness in a company can really be public enemy number one when it comes to growth and trying to scale. And I think there's studies that actually support that. I remember a McKinsey study that suggested that 64% of executives, so 2/3 of execs, say that organizational silos are the number one barrier when it comes to scaling growth at their companies. And the reason why is when growth starts to really accelerate at especially growth stage companies, there's this natural tendency for teams to run faster as they should, but they run faster in their own lanes. And then that's where misalignment starts to creep into the business and result in different departments chasing their own strategies with their own rules, their own metrics that they're following. So it's important to operate from this shared set of truths and outcomes throughout a business. So really 3 factors. It comes down to metrics, operating rhythms, and good communication. Right? So metrics, the visibility of metrics at a practical level, that could mean one unified scorecard for the whole organization where functions like marketing, sales, and customer success are all measured under similar, in some cases, the same factors, right? Where they all have some investment in like pipeline creation, conversion, retention, expansion, and all those that are involved can be tracking the same shared visibility, but also accountability on the results. And then you have rhythms, right? And that means building consistent and shared operational moments or movements throughout the business so that everyone is really playing the same tempo. So that could be joint forecasting, right? That doesn't just involve sales forecasting, but other areas of the organization, cross-functional pipeline visibility and deal reviews. So everybody sees the meaningful deals that are coming, shared planning or strategy sessions. Like these are all things where people can see how their individual piece in the business impacts the larger picture of what the business is looking to do. And then needless to say, like the last thing that brings it all together is just communication, right? So communication has to scale as the business scales. Right. And small companies have this way of communicating verbally, right? Because you communicate in meetings because you have all the information, all the people, and it's very close. But with scale, that starts to come apart because there's more things to communicate. There's more people to communicate to. And if you try to do that the same way, you find yourself in meetings all day with, no time to actually do all of the things that you're coming up with in those meetings. So the ways of communicating valuable information needs to change. So when you bring all 3 of those things together, you really have value in a trifecta of scale fundamentals that creates a strong engine for clean and scalable growth.
With the right tools like AI and the right systems like EOS and RevOps in place, we're turning to the most critical variable for success, a leadership mindset. In this new landscape, the old playbooks no longer apply. Our guests shared specific, actionable strategies and mental models that differentiate winning leaders in today's market. The first strategic pillar our guests noted is the deceptively simple power of focus. In a world telling you to do more, their advice was unanimous. Do less, but do it better than anyone else. The second strategy is a disciplined, data-informed approach to decision-making. We've already touched on the importance of data, but from a leadership perspective, the goal isn't just to have data, it's to use it to simplify complexity and focus the organization's efforts. The final and perhaps most powerful leadership mindset is the shift from linear to exponential thinking. New tools like AI combined with the willingness to challenge past assumptions are allowing leaders to collapse timelines and achieve goals that were previously unimaginable. It requires letting go of what was possible to embrace what could be possible. It's about asking, how do I build a company that's not just surviving change, but is resilient, adaptable, and positioned to innovate for years to come? Andrew James, founder and CEO at Cerebro Analytics.
The huge mistake is we think about this from a frame of people at top will have all data and therefore be able to make decisions. And then everybody below us is just going to be a peon and get there. And you look at the biggest companies in the world, and it's literally the exact opposite of how they function. Google famously uses OKRs, objectives and key results, and they don't even know what 80% of the people are working on directly half of the time, maybe more of that. They're choosing some of their own objectives. So when you think about decision making, I think we silo it into this idea of somebody at the top is going to make a decision, and it's a lot more about pushing it down. That's why I say we've got to infrastructure this such that even machines could make effective decisions within the right safeguards and rule set to be able to move your business forward. So at a high level, sure, there's a business constraint. But if we go down into marketing or sales or customer success, there's going to be in those departments and below each of those decisions for people's jobs for them to go make. And it's something that they can push against and improve upon, and allowing them to see their piece of the universe. So I think that's the big mistake. Of course, there's times where there's data some people in the business shouldn't have, but I'm a pretty big believer that if we can feed the right systems and tools and the right people data that's should be available to them and relevant to them, that if they look at the scoreboard, they can optimize against it. Humans are great at this. It's like one of the things we're the best at. It's the wisdom of the crowd versus the intelligence of like the one super individual. The market collectively always beats the one player at the top. There's always more right. And so to me, that would be the biggest mistake, is when you deviate from kind of picking the thing to focus on when we've not measured it for ourselves and used it for ourselves. And furthermore, when we've thought about decisions as a top-down only thing versus giving every user their capability to see the piece of the business that they affect and having their own individual metrics that they're trying to get moved forward.
Chad Jenkins, owner and CEO at CSpark, Colab, and author.
When you begin to look at the world through the eyes of collaboration and what it is that you have to give, not what you're looking to get, it changes the entire game. It is truly a mindset shift, and it takes a while, even with very high-performing entrepreneurs. They understand it, at least as verbally given to them. It's a way different practice to live it. So it is a journey. So oftentimes it's very easy, especially when things are going great, they fall back into not leveraging the art of collaboration. They fall back into the current conventions. And I would argue many of those strategies are solely based upon competition, where collaboration is not. It's the awareness that we've all been given unique and special gifts. And if we approach the world as to how can we give it to someone or someone else, and what happens is there's going to be an outcome. And how can we split that outcome? That's way different than today. I'd love for you to come and help me, and you're going to give me a proposal. That's very conventional, right? At the end of page 3, it's going to be a lot of bullet points and somewhere for me to sign and some monetary associated value to creating this outcome. But I would argue in my world that I definitely operate just a little bit differently, in that I understand that's a point in time, and that's an amount of money that I'm trading for, hopefully an outcome that we are both aligned with. But the reality is, the second that the ink dries, or even before, everything changes. Whether it be market, the team, somebody left or somebody joined, product or vendor, supplier cannot get it here in time, or it showed up early. The market, whether it be interest rates, if we're tied to those, are up or down, there is going to be change. So it puts each party, in my world, at a little bit of a disadvantage, though it is the convention today, because we know things are going to change. And in my world, I want everyone to win at the beginning, the middle, and the end. So that's one reason I've really constructed all of these mechanisms of engagement, all centered around the art of collaboration, where everybody wins in the outcome.
Kate Donovan, CEO at Camp Digital.
What I've discovered over the last 5, 6, 7 years is that sometimes you go slower to go fast. And I don't think the 2018 me would have realized that. I think the 2025 me realizes sometimes you go just a teeny bit slower, which actually makes you go faster. And that was a hard concept for me to grasp. And it took, to your point about people, it took some people around me going, now wait a second, one more second. Because I'm a very instinctual person. I operate very heavily on instinct, which is not the best way to operate. But taking the time just to slow down, and I'm not an analysis paralysis person. I'm not let's go back and rethink every decision we made. But someone said that line to me. Sometimes you go slower to go fast, and I take that to heart.
Kevin Davis, CEO at Boogie Board.
Focus is not only useful in the sense that everyone is not spending time on bad activities or accounts that don't matter. It's also iterative. If I've aligned on what my focus is, I can then measure it. I can adjust it. And so the winning companies we see, they're not getting things right all the time, but they have a focus, and that focus manifests into additional focuses as they go forward.
Jeff Woods, founder at AI Leadership and author of The AI-Driven Leader.
Well, and it's a combination. It's mindset and it's AI. One, and this is rooted in the core of the AI-driven leader, is it serving you to hold on to the person that you used to be versus what would happen if you were willing to let go of who you've been so you could reimagine who you can become? When most people set goals, they set them based on what they've done in the past. They anchor themselves to the past for a future outcome that they desire. That makes no sense. So being willing to let go of, hey, this has been our product offering in the past, but if that's not going to scale to where we want to go, then it's no longer the right product offering. Maybe you're missing a new product offering. Well, we don't have a person who's able to deliver that. Great, you're missing a person. Go hire him. Go acquire the capability. And so if you're willing to just draw a line in the sand and say the past is the past, it does not predict my future. I get to set a goal and use the goal as a compass to inform who I can become. And if you set a short timeline, what happens is it collapses your options. All of a sudden, not anything will get you there. Only a few things, or maybe even one thing, will get you there. And then you dive in. And AI plays into this because so much of what we have done, frankly, is acting like machines. Send this email, do this task, generate this report. We're acting like industrial workers standing at an assembly line. And we had to set aside our human strengths in 1900 to start acting like machines. People are still acting like machines. Our public education system still teaches people to act like machines.
Don't even go there.
Yep. Show up to school on time. Take direction from a teacher. Do something repetitively with minimal error, with maximum efficiency, versus realizing that if we've been acting like machines and that's the majority of our time, if AI is going to take that away, I say hallelujah. Because isn't it ironic that a machine is likely what's going to return us to what makes us human? And what would your life look like if your day was filled harnessing your unique strengths as a human, focused on the 20% priorities of the role in alignment with the company goals, and you used AI to turn your strengths into superpowers? I don't know about you. That sounds pretty good. And this is not some pipe dream. This is my life now. All leadership starts with self-leadership. The who you are missing is you. The question is, who can you become?
Thanks for joining us for this flashback episode. My challenge to you is to pick one key idea from this recap, just one, and decide how you can apply it this week. A huge thank you to all the incredible guests who shared their wisdom and experience with us this season. And thank you for listening. We'll see you at the next episode of RevOps Champions.